Hello, everybody. In this video, I wanted to talk about the defensive use of the auxiliary function by the ISFJs and the INFJs. Um, and this is actually the true impetus for the whole thing. Wow, it's veiled in secrecy. Run and hide from the agenda. But I really Visionary Lust is a YouTube personality, we'll call him, that's been doing some interesting videos, and I commented and he was going to do one, but I got impatient. I'm still thinking about the subject, and I digress, and I'm not going to get into all that, but I'm still thinking on the subject. So I'm really curious as to the auxiliary defensive use of extroverted feeling for these two types. So what I'm doing with these videos is I'm doing some auxiliary defensive, uses videos. Um, and I'm what I'm doing is I'm trying to expose or just trying to bring to light what maybe people have before on YouTube or not. But the idea that you've got a dominant function, you got a tertiary function. So there's a loop. Yay. Loops have been around forever. We've all been, looking at these loops, and I keep talking about it a lot. I'm just get obsessed with things, and right now I'm obsessed with loops and defensive auxiliary functions. Um, so the idea that you would prefer to stay in a state of mind with your dominant function and then your tertiary function looped, and only using your auxiliary function to the extent that it helps keep you in that spot. So for ISFJs and INFJs, almost only using their extroverted feeling to the extent it allows them to stay in their normal dominant tertiary roles. And I'm really curious. So maybe I'll start off with the ISFJ and then get into my other curiosity. Well, I guess I don't even know that to get in. Oh, I can do that. So there's some stereotypes with the ISFJs. I don't know for sure if my mother's an ESFJ or an ISFJ, but she's tested as ISFJ, and I think she relates pretty heavily to it. So I've got some background with that. Um, and my mother really does like to she really does like to do the cooking and the cleaning, and just kind of like that's her thing. She likes to do little things like that for people, you know. But she doesn't like to like go out in public and do that so much. She just kind of wishes she could just kind of, like just like be home and doing the cooking and cleaning and feel like she was providing for people, her loved ones, or whatever that way. That's just kind of what she does. So so you could say that you well, yeah, branching out there a little ways, but I don't think it's gonna offend. I don't think Mom's gonna watch this and get too offended, or hopefully she won't watch it. But you'd almost say somebody like an ISFJ could almost say, well, okay, they're gonna want a family and they're gonna want children, just to allow them. It's like once they have these things, or once they have these people to take care of, they need just enough of this emotional circle or group or whatever, so that once they have this, now what they want is to just kind of, stay in SI mode, and stay in SI mode, loop down to TI mode, and just spend the time doing those things. And there's a lot of good to be said about that, because they're using the dominant function, which they're going to be good at. But but almost to the extent that they're not getting out there and using their extroverted feeling as much as they maybe could. And that doesn't really necessarily hold true for mothers, I'm sure, because they interact with their children quite a bit. But what I think it really starts becoming a little bit more evident is when you start looking at, and because oh boy, so I probably was a little sexist there too. Don't mean to be sexist at all, but I probably am. I don't, oh boy. So I don't mean that at all. It definitely doesn't preclude any other, aspects of that. But I think where that homemaking role is provided the ISFJ, that kind of, that's going to still probably work out pretty well. What really provides the interest, and I don't necessarily have a lot of examples for this on the ISFJ side. So my mom's the only example, and I don't know why I'm saying mom like that, but my mom is the only example that I'm really looking at that way, and haven't thought a lot about that. What I'm really curious about is the INFJs. especially as it pertains to more nefarious people in movies or history or some of these other things. So I'm looking at that, and it's like, so you take boy, there's a polarized. So you take the idea that somebody could, in the INFJ situation, that somebody can start with feelings towards a group. Start off with that, not as a dominant function, but as an auxiliary defensive thought process, which I have as well. It's just a different auxiliary defensive thought process. But they could start there and say, oh, okay, I care about this group, therefore, and justify the means, blah, 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 go into the NITI loop situation. And I think if I examine my mother's situation, like if I examine how that, I think I could also see that as like, my mother would do things for us because she cared for us, but a lot of the time it was like, it was that weird thing where it's like, okay, well, you kind of needed, you really wanted to do that for somebody, so you did that for me or something like that, or you wanted to cook and eat meal, you wanted to, but now kind of like owe you like a bunch of gratitude or little tasks or all these things, and I'm gonna sign up for this, or or something like that. But I'm digressing. But what I'm looking at with the INFJs there is the idea that, okay, we can start with very good intentions and very caring situation about a group or anything else like that, and then develop some sort of worldview or morality that can go a different direction with it. And the examples, I mean, what really tricked this whole thing is I caught some stuff with there was some goofy stuff happening on YouTube, and I haven't gotten crucified yet by these people, but there are a group of people that people probably know about, that were making videos and like made a religion out of a different branch of, or out of a derivative or a parallel system to the MBTI. Yeah, there was one of the ringleaders was INFJ-ish, and it's just kind of weird. So I'm kind of looking at like Loki in the Avengers, and sorry, but like people are going to argue about that and stuff like that. But I think now that I understand the loops, I think it actually fits. Loki actually like has a lot of like is a very bruised example, but there's emotionality in all of it. And I don't think it's INTJ emotionality. Not that INTJs wouldn't have emotionality, but there is emotionality in all of it, and I do feel an extroverted feeling way. And then he does kind of get tripped up where, like somehow he figures out that the world is going to be better if he rules it or something, and then he just kind of, and in a real life example, Hitler is that way. So I'm just kind of, these are very, 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 I understand if I'm pushing your buttons. Push your buttons, turn the video off, I'm sorry. So, and that, well, don't turn it off because I'll probably stop now. So I'm just curious as to how that can actually happen. And yeah, so I'm kind of hoping that Visionary Lust can shed some more light on that, because he seems to be interested in the topic that way. And I'm just really, really curious because FI, well, so the ENFPs, I'm making a lot of people not happy today. But so FI, I can see how that can be combative as an auxiliary function. I can see how that I can see how when used defensively, it can be frustrating, to other people, and I don't necessarily want to deal with it all the time. FE, I have more respect for in some ways and stuff like that usually and stuff, or I don't know, but I think FE can be a far more beautiful thing to me than FI can, but it's just kind of weird how strongly defensively it can be used in a way that I'm not going to like. So So, and I digressed a lot in this video relative to the others, but this is the one I'm really thinking about as opposed to knowing a lot about. So what I'm looking at here is the idea that INFJs, ISFJs would start off and say, well, I care about this subset of people, therefore the ends justify the means, or therefore this course of action is required, or therefore this, and for the ISFJs, maybe, well, since I care for these people, the thing that I do in my societal role is to do this, this, and this to show that I care. And that can be, but it doesn't always conform to societal roles, or people don't all receive the understanding of caring or want the same exact understanding of caring in that societal sense. So that might be a frustration for ISFJs. Um, and then for the INFJs, I mean, the generated worldview of how it might supposedly need to be from a morality sense, or whatever NITI loop is going on, may not necessarily be for everybody's good. But what's starting there is both types are starting with the objective feeling reality of that they want good unto certain people. They're just missing they need more objective feeling reality than what they're actually going on. They start there, I care about these people, and then they back up from that point. And not saying they back up totally, but then they just get so drawn into their normal loop, just like the rest of us. So I mean, if they're interacting more fully with objective reality, the ISFJs, for example, would find out more readily what actually does make the people feel cared about, or what does, and the INFJs as well. So they both care a lot about making people happy and feel cared for, but their objective ability to make people feel happy and cared for sometimes can be a little bit lacking. So maybe that's helpful to some people. Maybe I piss people off with this. Didn't mean to, but this is the one I'm thinking more about as opposed to knowing more about. So hoping Visionary Les will come up with one of his videos pretty soon, because I'm really interested. And or maybe he won't like this either, but I don't know. So thanks for watching, and check out my channel.